Hello! Fingers crossed, last week didn't go well, did it? Mike never heard me. But hopefully the rest of you will hear me and you'll let me know in the chat. So many of you already in the chat, so hello to each and every one of you. Oh, I saw Andrew. Was it Andrew from Wolverhampton? I know you've been with us before. Hello, good evening. And good evening to everybody else as well. Renee's busy telling us it's easy, so Renee will be taking the rest of this session. I'm getting the thumbs up now so I can get on with it. So I will go and get on with it. Right. Fingers crossed. Because it's very warm. If you hear any traffic, that's because the window's open. The reason the window's open is it is blissfully blowing a breeze. So I'm sticking with it. Right. Okay. Let's see if it moves. It does. So I'm Elaine. I'm imagining by looking at the chat that a lot of you already know that. But if you're watching on Catch Up and you don't, hello, Elaine, long-time computer trainer, podcast host and YouTuber. Love all of the Affinity Suite. Are at the minute in the middle of a dedicated series. We are broadcasting in HD 1080p. Make sure you are receiving in 1080p. There is a cog in the lower right hand corner. You should have a red flash on it. If you don't, that's because YouTube want you to watch it at less quality than we are broadcasting. So make sure that you do have that red flash. While you're down there, there is a like button very close to the cog. Give that a hit. Also, you can subscribe to the channel and that way you don't miss anything. There is also the notification bell, so you'll be notified as soon as we go live. Right, couple of admin points this week because you may notice a difference. I haven't noticed a difference, but you know, you might. I have finally done the Monterey thing. I know. It was October last year, wasn't it? So I'm like 9 or 10 months behind, but never mind, I'm there now. Or as we call it at MapBytes headquarters, the full Monty. I am full monted. I have also ensured that my errant mouse, who's been very naughty lately, has all the latest drivers, etc. So if he's naughty tonight, he might get replaced. But I have done that. The other thing that we're doing this week is normally we broadcast. I know I've said 1080p, and we do, but we upscale 1600 by 900. The rationale being you will be able to see more of what's going on the screen because the icons will be bigger. But the icons being bigger means that we have less area that we're actually broadcasting. So tonight we are actually doing 1920 by 1080. So if it looks slightly different, that's why. It's so you can see more of what I'm actually working on. Right. Affinity works on Windows and Mac. Everything you see tonight will work on the Windows version, although I will actually be demonstrating it in the Mac version. This is part 3 of our series on planner pages. So the first one was how to create planner pages. That was all to do with just the layout aspect of it. And there is QR code on there and Mike will put the links in the chat. So that was part 1. Last week was part 2, where we got interactive with it. And it was how you added all of the links to the tabs and anywhere else that you needed it to make the thing interactive when it came out as a PDF. So again, QR code there. So this one is part 3. As I said last week, I could have done these in a different order. It may have made more sense. Once you've seen them all, you'll think, I wouldn't get interactive until I've got all of the pages, and for the pages I need the data merge bit. But I wanted to get to the point so you could see what you would actually end up with. So in a way, we're taking a step back and we're going back to creating planner pages, but this time in bulk. So what we have tonight. What is a data merge? Many of you may have done a data merge before, but for those who haven't, we will go over that. Creating your data source, then linking that data source to the Affinity Publisher file, which is done with the Data Merge Manager. That isn't the end of the story though. Once you've hooked them up, you then need to insert the content from the data merge into the Affinity file, which is where you need the Fields panel. Then we're going to create the document. But then we need to take a sideways step in terms of building the planner. All will become clear. And our bonus, magic hyperlinks. How to put the hyperlinks in fast, because we're going to end up tonight with over 700 pages and that's only half the story. I know as we go through, you will have questions. So if you put a Q at the beginning of the question in the chat, if you're with us live, we will gather them together and answer them at relevant points. If you are watching this on Catch Up, you can either put a comment in there or ping me. Also, give us a little bit of context. So if you are talking about a specific dialog box or a specific thing, let us know what that specific thing is. And we will also have time for a Q&A and chat at the end of the entire thing. So, power up planner page creation with data merge. So, what's data merge? If you have no idea, let me enlighten you. You have data in a data source somewhere. That is what looks like the oil barrel on the left. You then have an Affinity Publisher file. And the data merge aspect is merging the two together. So the standard example tends to be letters. This goes back years. And it will create a merge file at the bottom. One thing that separates Affinity Publisher is in terms of the data it can handle. That diagram has been there since time immemorial. But for Affinity Publisher, we need a second one. And the second one is this. You can actually have multiple data sources. That can be multiple files, or it could be, if you're using a spreadsheet, for example, multiple sheets in one file. But it still counts as multiple data sources because you add the data sources to the document, your creation document, as you go. So, as I've said, people usually think of letters or labels. That is another big one, labels. We did labels in a different session. So obviously tonight with planners, it's not going to be labels. But let's move on from labels. Also, things like, it's not moving at all now. Oh, there we go. Now it's racing with itself. Let's get it to catch up by going backwards. Now it's going to go back too far, isn't it? Yes, now it's gone back to labels. Oh, joy. Right. Things like certificates. So that is one file in Affinity Publisher, but multiple people on a course, and you merge the two. Then there's huge jobs like catalogues. That's the kind of job where you would maybe have multiple data sources. Maybe you would have items from the lighting section and items from the furniture section, and you want to create separate sections. You can also create individual things like business cards, or in this case, lanyard labels. But obviously, we are creating planner pages. So the planner pages we'll be creating tonight are individual days and spreads, daily spreads. So where can the data come from? Well, unlike InDesign, which is quite limited, Publisher accepts data in numbers format, Excel format, and from LibreOffice. But the thing is, it's all the same format because all of those apps support XLSX format, which is the newer format from Excel. If you hook it up or try to hook it up to an Excel file that isn't XLSX, it's just XLS, it doesn't work. It won't let you hook it up to it. There's nothing probably wrong with the data, it's just older data. So it does have to be in the more modern Excel format. But all of those apps will let you work with that, and Numbers is free and LibreOffice is free. It also supports text files. Shall I tell them what you said? Mr. Excel over there, the expert. Text files, CSV, that's comma separated values, text files, and TSV. And Mike said, what's a TSV? Never heard of that one. No. Heard it called text separated values, tab separated values, but never actually TSV. Okay, let me get your microphone on. Where you go?
Rene says, can you use various worksheets of an Excel sheet to merge?
Yes, you can. Obviously, there's caveats in terms of what you're trying to achieve with it. I'm not going to use separate sheets tonight. I'll switch from one sheet to another, but yes, you can do. I could do that tonight, but I've just built it as one sheet to keep it simple. But yes, all the sheets are listed and you get to choose which sheet is used for it. In fact, Affinity Publisher is incredibly forgiving. And what I mean by that is, if you've got your data file hooked up to your Publisher file and you move your data file, obviously you'll break it. So the link between, it isn't going to be able to find it. Normally that's catastrophic. You've then got to start again. But with Affinity Publisher, you don't. You can rehook it up to any data source. It can even be a different file. As long as the field names are the same, it will automatically map to everything that you've already got. It's genius. In the last session that I did on it, which I'll talk about in a second, we did do a demonstration of that with our bingo cards. Right, so hopefully that answers that question. So they're the text files, and the last one that is supported is JSON files, which is, this is supported by many applications as a standard for data exchange. I'm trying to think, I think it's JavaScript something files, but JSON files they're known as. So things like Bear can export JSON files. That's just a notes app. Obviously it needs to be in some kind of structured format to make sense, but it does support it. So as I've mentioned, we did do a different session on deep diving data merge, but we did really deep dive it, and it wasn't to do with planner pages, hence this planner pages session. But that's available on the channel. Mike will put the link into the chat. It's also linked in the description below. It was a fairly long session, but it covered all aspects of data merge. And the interesting one, as far as I was concerned, were the bingo cards, because I managed to do that within about 6 hours of the release. And there was the manuals. No. There was no instructions. I just had to fiddle around until I got it to work. Right. So what we're going to be doing today, we are going to be doing multiple merges. First of all, we've got a single data source. We are merging it with an Affinity Publisher file, but just so you're absolutely certain what we're going to get another Affinity Publisher file. We are not, if you did this in Word, you might automatically send it out and generate a PDF with multiple pages in it. That's not what we're doing. We will end up with a second merged file in Affinity Publisher format, which is quite important because we then need to convert that to a PDF. Now that's how it works the whole of the time. We'll be doing something slightly different, which I will now explain. So starting again, we will have a single data source and a single Affinity Publisher file, which will create a second Affinity Publisher file. We will then need to take those pages and put them in a third Affinity Publisher file. This file we've already created. So if you've been following along with this series, that secondary file already exists. It's the one where we've got the dividers. And finally, we'll then create a PDF of that, and that will be the final planner. So that's the idea. Let's go and have a look. So first of all, I will show you the Excel file, which I happen to have open. So this is what we're going to be working with. You can see I've already got 4 tabs in here at the bottom. So I've got 2022, 2022 with time blocks, 2023, and 2023 with time blocks. There's nothing special about this data. In terms of if you wanted to create this, you could do that. This has been created more automated than you may choose to do it. There are many ways to create this data. The way that I have chosen to do it is to put in cell A2 a date. And the rest of that page, all of that data, is calculated from that date. So A3 takes the value in A2 and adds 1 to it. And everything else follows from that. But Excel has this fabulous feature called Flash Fill. So if you put in the first date, you put in the second date, and you select them and drag them down, it will fill it for you. So you don't actually have to know anything about Excel whatsoever. Just put in 2 dates and pull them down. So what that looks like is you grab 2 of them, you go to the corner, click and hold and pull down, and it will fill it. I've just gone the automated way, it's just faster for me. I have included the short date, I've included a long date, and I've also included the day separately. Just for good measure, I've added a column that holds the holidays. And this way, I won't have to write them in my planner, it will pull them in from here. So the reason that I've got 2 dates, long and short, is there isn't much that you can do in terms of formatting at the Affinity Publisher end. So it's best, if possible, if you only have 1 date in your data, Really simple at the other end to add another column that refers back to the first one and formats it differently. And that's all I've done there. The reason I have the day separate, because there's no need to have it separate, I could actually have put it with the long date. But I'd have to make my mind up at the Excel point whether I wanted the day before the date or after the date. Keeping them separate gives me options when it comes to the Affinity Publisher file. I can make that decision at that point and I don't have to do it in here. So that is the data that we're actually working with. So the way I've done it, I typed in one date and then I added one to the cell above, one to the cell above, one to the cell above. And that's how it's done. Here, same principle. It takes the value that is in the cell one to the left, which is the one date that I am typing in. And it just equals that. Now you might say, well, just a minute. If B2 equals A2, why do they look different? And that's purely the formatting that's been applied to the cell. The formatting comes from up here, and I have selected custom. So if I go to more number formats, it's a custom format that is a single number for the day, the full month and the full year. So instead of it being a date and time in here, it's a custom one and I've made it custom. Simple as that. And this one is exactly the same. It's the value in A2 formatted differently. So if we go back into custom, more number formats, and have a look at that one, that just says DDDD, which means show me the full day. I could take that away. So it's just 3 days and OK. And now that one says Sat rather than Saturday. So that is how it's done. It's the magic of formats. There's going to be a problem with this data though, not in 2022 or 2023, but there would be in 2024. What would that problem be? Well, let's scoot down and have a look. So as I'm moving through, we go into February and we see that February only has 28 days in 2022, as it does in 2023. But in 2024, it doesn't. It's going to be a leap year, so there will be the 29th of February. Will this break? Will it work? It will actually work. I can show you this working if we go to 2023. So let's go to the top of there. I'm not changing this data because that's the data I'm using in the merge. But in 2023, if we go down, you can see it is still the 28th. But as I said, if I change the value in that cell, everything will update. So I'm changing it from 2023 to 2024. Everything updates. All of the days update. This one isn't going to be a bank holiday, unfortunately, at that point. But let's move down and see what it did with February. Did it cope? It did. There's February. Now, to be able to cope with February in an elegant way, magic had to be performed. So I'm going to go right down to the bottom of this. Do we have the 31st of December? And the answer is we do. So it's by me changing that date in A2, it actually added an extra row at the bottom. That row is 367. If I go back to 2022 and I go down to the end, you can see here that it finishes on 366. So how on earth do you do magic like that, where it doesn't just do a certain number of days, it knows when it's a leap year and how that works? Right, let me explain. In 367, there is a formula. That's what does the magic. There is another one in B367 and another in C367. Let's explain what all that is about. So this is the source format, handling leap years. In A367, now if you are not a spreadsheet person and your mind is boggling, just skip forward a bit. If you're with me live, close your eyes, it'll all be over soon. But if you are interested in how to make this work, so you only ever have to have one file, here you go. In A367, we put that formula, which is an if function, and it has 3 parts to it. It has day, brackets, and a cell reference is 31. It has speech mark, and it then has A366 plus 1. So that's the calculation bit. Let's put that in plain English. If the day number in this cell, in the cell one above, is 31, then do nothing. Show nothing in this cell. If it isn't, so if that cell one above isn't 31, then put in the value in the cell one above and add 1 to it. Simple as that. So what it says is, if the day number in the cell one above is 31, show nothing in this cell. If not, add 1 to the value in the cell one above and show it in A367. In B367, there is another conditional function and formula, which is that. Again, it's got 3 parts. The syntax is always the same. There's always the 3 elements. The condition, what to do if it's true and what to do if it's false. So if the cell one above is empty, show nothing in this cell. That's right. No, it's not one above. It's not one above, it's 1 to the left. Right, show nothing in this cell. If not, show the value in that cell, which is 1 to the left. Right? Simple. C367 is exactly the same. So it's referencing A367, and there are the 3 parts to it. It is saying if the cell above is empty, then show nothing in this cell. Otherwise, add 1. Show the value in the cell 1 to the left. So you've already, this one is working backwards with the one in column B. That was probably the worst explanation. Mike's probably sniggering gently with himself. But that is what it's all about. So those are there all the time. Line 367 is not blank. It has those 3 functions in it. But depending on the year, there will be a value shown or not, depending if it's a leap year. So hopefully that made sense to at least some of you. But if it's totally beyond you, don't worry about it. It's just what's in these cells. So you can see there is something in there, but because the cell one above is 31, there's nothing showing. But when we change it, and there is something to be shown, so think about that one. If the day in A366 is 31, which it isn't, then show 31 in this cell. That's all it's doing. And that is the data that we will be using. Now, in terms of leap years, we don't have to worry about it because it's not a leap year. So I'm going to quickly change that back to 23. Not even that we're going to use that, but there you go. So that is the data we are using. I will leave this file open because I'm going to come back and show you what happens when you change it later on. But we don't need it right this second. Right, do we have any questions at the moment?
Yeah.
Right, off you go.
We have one question that was put in the other day from MTM.
Yes, but I'm going to deal with that later.
Okay.
I've not missed that. I captured it.
And we've got Dale who's asking, is there a way to add holidays automatically? And I am partway through typing up a suggestion.
Right, so Mike's going to deal with that.
Yeah.
Right, anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, so let's have a look at our first merge then. Now, I'm not going to make you sit through me creating this. I've already done it. And I was mindful of the fact that last time somebody said they liked orange. So I've gone with orange. Right, this is very simple, but we're going to, at the moment, it's totally manual. There is one page. There's 3 tables on there. So this table has the time and details. So think of it as a daily planner. I've got events in this block and I've got to-do items in that block. So there are 3 tables in there. The times in here are hard-coded, just like they would be if you bought planner pages and they have times in them. Used to infuriate me because I was never up at the time that it started. I have one text box up here. And this one says long date - date, but it's not magic at the moment. It's just text to remind me what we're doing. So I've just typed that in there. Notice it does have a format. So if we look over at the text styles over here, it does have a format. It's got a heading page left. So at the moment, this isn't a left page, but it will be shortly. So I left the style the same. So we need to replace the long date and the day and add the holidays somewhere into this layout. Right, step 1. you need to tell it where the data is. So to do that, you go up to Document and down to Data Merge Manager, which brings up this dialog box. Fairly plain. All you need to do is go and navigate to the file. So down at the bottom, we have this Add Data Merge Source going on. So I'm going to click on there. That will bring this up, and this is totally the wrong place, but it is in here. So we'll move this out of the way, and this is the Excel data used in all the demos tonight. So I'm going to go into there, and there it is. One XLSX file. And open that. That loads it into here and populates the controls with elements of data from the data source. So let's fold these up and see what we've got. Right, first of all, there's the actual source file itself. By default, you've already told it what file, but you've not told it what sheet in there. But it loads the sheets in, and there's the 3 sheets that we had. 2022 with the time blocks, 2023, and then 2023 with the time blocks. So you could hook up to any of these. Now, if you wanted to create 2022 and 2023, you wouldn't do that by choosing multiple sheets because you can only choose one sheet. But as I've already mentioned, this Add Data Source allows you to add multiple data sources. So you could add the same data source twice and choose 2 different sheets. So there's no need to keep your data source in multiple Excel files to make this work. They can all be in one file if that's what you want. You then have the option to update, to show, or to select from in here. So we're all sorted at that point. Then there is an option to filter it. It's not that powerful, the ability to filter in here. It's either all the records or a range of pages. You are not in here putting in, oh, if the value is more than whatever. It's nothing like that. It's just to allow you to choose a date range, in our case, or a data range from the available data, but it's not that advanced. I would do that at the Excel end. In fact, I would do quite a lot of this at the Excel end, including all of the formatting. You've then got the option to preview. So you could preview it with a record. Now, at the moment, we haven't got any fields in the document, so that won't do us any good. But it is as simple as putting a tick in the preview with record box when we have. Then we have the merge pages. So merge is enabled, then whether you repeat all pages or the rest of it, and then generate, and that will generate you the file. So, before we go any further with that, we are still going to need this dialog, but there's something we need to do first. That is step 1. So I'm going to leave that on the other screen. The next step in here is to go into View and Studio, where everything is contained in all of the panels, and go to the Fields panel. That will open up on another screen. So I will make sure we can see it. There we go. Right, and what we've got in here is a collection of field information. So we have document statistics. So if you wanted to put when it was last created or saved, you find all of that in here. But the one we're interested in is this one at the bottom, which is data merge, and it's the planner source data. And these are the fields that were available in that first sheet. So that's what we need there. As it says, you just double click the field name to insert it. So I've got the long date and the date. So all I need to do up here is lose the text. That's just my placeholder telling me what I need. And I want the long date in there. So I've double clicked it. And then I want the date. So I'm selecting the date, getting rid of that. And then across to the fields and double click the day. The only difference you will see there, because the formatting is the same, but you'll see that you've now got angle brackets wrapped round the text. That indicates to you it's a field. Right, the next thing we need, we don't particularly in this one need the short date. I will show you that in the second one, how you can put that on there. But the other thing we do need in here is the holidays. So if I click in the events there in the second one and double click holiday, that will work wonders. So we're only putting 3 fields in. So it was a long explanation to get us to this point, but now we're motoring. So back in the data merge dialog, we can now preview with a record. And as we do that, it fills it in. 1st of January, it was a Saturday, and event, it was New Year's Day. You can then, without doing anything in the file, because we still only have one page. There's still one page over here. But you can move through your records in that one page. So as I move to the 3rd, you can see it's now a bank holiday in lieu of the fact New Year's Day was a weekend. So yes, that is working. And as you race through this, is it the 25th? There's the 25th, which is Burns Night. So we can see the events are all coming through, and the days are coming through, and it's marvellous, everything's coming through. Right, one more step to actually generate 365 pages, which is the generate button at the bottom. Simple as that. So hit that, it starts doing a data merge. I get that off the screen, but it's still working. It generates a completely separate file. So this file here is the one that we've actually put the single page and our fields in. This one, which is untitled, is the merge. So in here, we should have hundreds of pages. Hear my mouse. There you go. He's behaving himself so far. Right. So down the bottom, we have 365 pages. And that one is the 31st of December. Ah, what a party. So simple as that. What you would then do with this is either, if this is what you want, if it includes everything you need, then you create a PDF of it. For what we want to do, it's not everything. If you've been with us before and you're in the chat, let me know what you think's wrong with it. Size-wise, it's fine. You could use this data as intended. You would probably have to make a quick change with it in here to make it work. Mainly the issue is our planner had a spiral binding in the middle, and we had it as a double page spread, and this is not a double page spread. You could have the 1st of January on one side and the 2nd of January on the other, but when I used a physical planner, I had a 2-page spread. I had exactly what you see there on the left, but on the right hand side it was a huge space for notes. And there was a whole system that went with it as well. My daily notes went in this notes section. And then anything important at the end of the month, you added to a manual index that you actually hand wrote. Oh, those were the days. So having a double page spread is what I'm used to. So that's simple as it goes. Let's save that file just in case. So we'll have this as OTN1, as I always do. Right. I'm going to close that one down. And this file that we started with, if I close it without saving it, I will still have the layout, but it won't be hooked up to the data and it won't have the fields in it. So I probably should save that as well. And then the next time I open that, I can change the layout, I can change the colours, but the data remains attached to it. And it's as simple as hitting the generate button to redo it. But we have finished with that one, so let's move on to the second one. Do we have any questions at that point?
No.
Right. So the second one, again, I've already created the file itself. Right, let's move the fields out of the way so you can see the whole thing. In this one, this is identical to what I used to use in a physical planner. So I had my long date and the date next to it, the actual day. I had my events in the event block. And I had a short date in that corner for when you were flicking through the planner, because you'd have to flick through it backwards to see the date over here. So I just had the short date in that corner there. Other than that, it's virtually identical to the other one. So that gives us an opportunity to work through it for a second time. So there's no data attached to it. I need to go and get the data. There's the data behind it, but we are in here. No, I don't want to do that. No, I'm trying to get a file in here. I want to get into there for the Excel data, which is that file. Do you know I just said the mouse was being good? Yeah, just took one on itself. Right, let's open that up. So again, I don't really need to do anything unless I'm prepping the pages for 2023, in which case I would come into here and I would choose different data. So for this example, we could do that. We could choose 2023. Let's get that out of the way. And now we need to do the second part of the magic, which is the Fields panel. Remember, that's available from View Studio Fields. And here's our merge data at the bottom. And here's our placeholders for that. So up here, let's get rid of that completely. And put the long date in. Put the dash between them. Put the day. And then over on this side, get rid of that and put in the short date. And finally, in there, put in the holiday. Right, that's it for putting the data in. Again, remember you can preview with your source data. So let's bring this back. Put a tick in the preview with record. Initially, it is January the 1st. But as we go through these, so if I put in there 31, 51, somewhere around the 53 mark. Oh no, I need to move on a bit. Right, we're looking for, tell me that worked. Where's the 29th? Oh, I know what I didn't do. I know what I didn't do. Did I do that? Oh, where's it gone? Or did I change it? Oh, it's 2023, that's right, not 2024. I'm fooling myself. If there were a 29, it would be in there. Right, so that is our data previewed. Remember the next step in there, generate, and it will generate 365 days, but this time twice as many pages. Because we have, this one is page 1 and page 2. It's a 2-page spread. So it should come in as a spread. Let's have a look at these. Let's try that one. That's the third. Did I put the holidays in there? I did. There we go. Right. Got all of those in there. Let's go up to the 25th, which is going to be not page 25 anymore because there's 2 of them. So should be page 51, 52, I think, or 49, 50. One or the other. That one there, Burns Night. So yes, everything has come through. Everything is fine. Now, as I've said, this is why, because there's no option at the Affinity Publisher end, this is why all of this data was formatted in Excel. So on that one, exactly the same as the first one, but it's a 2-page spread, which is what we're going to need. Now, in terms of creating this file was created with the spacing of the file we have already used before, the master file we used the other week. So let me show you the master file. Open that up. In mind. So that's our monthly index that we'll be coming on to. But in here, you will remember we had this kind of thing going on. I finished this off in the week. So I've got January to July on the left and August to December and a few spares on the right, because this is August. So if this was a physical planner, these tabs over here would be folded over to the left. In here, I took all the measurements from in here and made sure in this file that I've got enough of a gap on the left-hand side, enough of a gap on the right-hand side, and I will have enough of a gap at the top to take these pages and insert them into that master planner, and then I can apply the tabs and the spine and everything will look perfect. So the size that I made these was made to match that master planner. So that is the 2023 double spread. Right, there is another one yet to do. Now this one is more complicated. It will take a little bit longer, but we're going to extend the data merge. And there is a reason why I am going to extend the data merge. It's to make the thing, the entire project, more flexible. Because so far, the only thing I'm changing is the date, the day, and the holiday, and the short date if I'm using it. But the point of taking this amount of time to create a planner is to make it as flexible as possible. And the part of this so far that is not flexible in the slightest are these times down here. You know, 9 o'clock is when maybe an office worker starts, not that they're working till 8:30. But you may want that starting at 7, maybe you're an early riser and you want it starting at 5. Or maybe like me, you work really late and you want it finishing at 7 in the morning, not starting. So to do that, you need to make some changes, but it's all doable. So And close that file down. I have another file to work with. That's the starting point, so I'll save that, lose that. We'll leave that open, but we're not working with that file yet. What I am going to do is open the right file, which is this one. It looks identical, it's just not hooked up. Right, what I have done is take away the short date. My rationale for taking away the short date is that's where the tabs are going to go. So that was there purely for demonstration purposes. The long date and the day I will put in again from my data source. It's these times that I need to lose. I don't want those to be fixed in there. So I know I need 24 of them because there's 25 rows in that column. So I need 24 times in there. So I'm just going to delete them. We are going back to Excel. Right. This time we're not merging with 2022. We're merging with the 2022 time blocks, which is this data, exactly the same data as this, but to make it work so it's flexible in terms of what time blocks are displayed in the finished planner, I've got different time blocks in here. So I have extra columns from E through to the end. Let's make this a bit smaller so we can see it all. There we go. There are 24 time blocks there, starting with 6 AM. Now, the way that I've built it, each record is a page. It's a planner page or a planner spread. So I have to have these the exact same multiple times down here to make it simple so you can see what I'm doing. But what if I don't want to start at 6? My day usually starts round about lunchtime, if I'm honest, maybe even later. But I do work incredibly late. So let's say in there, instead of 6 AM, you wanted that to start at 1. As I put this in here, as I press enter, everything in those time blocks updates. They all update. That's what I want to happen because I don't want different times on different days. Having said that, you might. You could have that conditional. I'll charge Mike with contemplating this one. He's the Excel person. What if I wanted to have, if it was Saturday and Sunday, I want to be up at 10, not 1. You could do that by making it conditional on what's in C1, C2 rather, on that one, or C3 or C4. So that's one option. Another time you might want to change these is when you're on holiday. So you could do that if you wanted, you know, if you were taking 2 weeks off starting on that Monday and finishing on that Sunday, that block there you could manually change. I've just gone the easy way here for the quickest to say that every day, that's the time I'm getting up and that's the time I'm going to bed. Simple as that. In fact, for me, that's not the time I'm going to bed, that's playtime. But how I've done that by only changing one cell is every other cell references that first cell. I'm not going to go into the details of how because it's ludicrous, but then I'm not an Excel aficionado. You've got to divide by silly numbers, but that works. So I can put anything I want in there. So I'm going to pretend that I'm a morning person and I'm getting up at 5 o'clock. That's so not happening. But there we go. That means when I take this data and I merge it all, instead of that starting at 9 o'clock, like all of the other examples, it will start at whatever time is in column E. That will be the new starting time. So I am going to save that, get rid of the data, and go through the hookup process again, which is I've not got anything in the data merge at the moment. So let's bring that up and hit that. Still go and find the thing, which is in that folder there, in the Excel data. Open that up. Again, it will default to the first sheet. So make sure that you choose the second sheet in this example with the time blocks and update that. Be absolutely sure. Now it says 28 fields rather than 4 fields. So if you miss that, we'll go back to 2022 and update, and it's got 4 fields. I will show you what happens in real time in the fields panel. So as I change that to the 2022 time blocks, this is going to update the number and this is going to go crazy as it loads everything in. All those extra time blocks. So the time block 1 to 24, all updated. Right, at that stage, we still need to marry everything up in here. So our long date over there and our day need adding. So long date, space dash space, and the day. Don't forget the holidays going in the events. And then there is the long business of putting these in here by double clicking. So I literally have to go through this one at a time. Benefit of doing this though, however, do be aware, you only have to do this once even if you change the data source. Now you'll notice that something is happening at this point, which is these are fractionally too big. So because it's wrapping, this is being pushed out of sync at the bottom. That is not something you need to be concerned about. When it loads the data in, it will shrink it back to the right size. So while I'm doing this, do we have any other questions?
Yes, we do.
Right, let's get your microphone on. Off you go.
Mrs. Arnold wants to know, is it possible to bring colours through from a data merge, i.e. a hex code that Affinity could read? Could you colour the months differently then?
No, it's not that clever yet. That's the problem at the Affinity end. The Affinity end, it's like having the engine there to do the merge, but none of the niceties. So if you've ever done a mail merge, it's called a mail merge in Word, you've got a few options. In here, you've got much less. That's why I say if you can do it outside, then you could do. One option would be to do the months one at a time. Have I gone wrong here somewhere? I am not liking that. I've missed one somewhere. 1, 2, 3. I've got 2 5s in. Oh, naughty me. Let's get rid of them and start again. No, not at the moment. But what you could do is separate merges. So you could hook this up, as I've done here. And then instead of merging the entire thing like I intend to, you could just limit it to a range. And at that point, you could merge the first month and then the second. And between the merges, you can change the colours as required. It would be easier if you were going to do that to make them global colours. And all of the magic we've done before with global colours and things like that. But at the moment, that's the only option. What you would need for that is conditional formatting at this end, which would say if the value of this is, and in your case you've said a hex code, then make it this colour. A couple of weeks back, Affinity put a questionnaire out, and the one of the questions was, what features would you like to see in the Affinity apps? And I put conditional formatting in here because it would be incredibly useful. So no to that one. That's the wrong one. That should be 19. Right, next question, Mike.
That's it.
Oh, right. Okay. I'm nearly done here. I'm going cross-eyed doing these. No, I've gone wrong again, haven't I? 15, 16, 17. I'm missing 17. Don't try and multitask, woman. Right, I'm nearly there. Just as well you only have to do this once, isn't it? Right. I'm just wondering if there is another way to do that. But I mustn't multitask or we'll lose everything here. So I'm going to finish these off. And then we will see this in its glory. 2 more to go. Or do I? No, I've gone wrong again. Oh, why are you so good in rehearsals? And then when you're trying to multitask? Absolutely shocking. I think I've still got 1 too many in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 22. Oh yeah, it's 23, not 24. Oh, so close. Right, finally done. As I said, don't worry about the fact that it doesn't look right. It'll look right when it's merged. Right, is there anything else to merge? No, there isn't. So at that point, just to prove the fact that it's not an issue, if we bring the data merge back on and we preview with a record, you can see it's sort of right. It doesn't actually look 100% right. I have no idea why. It should do. Oh, it's hanging off the end and all kinds of things. What I will say is I have noticed when I merge the bingo cards, they are diabolical. It looks nothing like the final thing. So I'm still hopeful that it's going to be fine, she said. Let's actually do the merge and find out. So I'm going to hit generate at that point, and fingers crossed. I could copy and paste into the table, which would be quicker at this point, but because I only need to hook these up once, that actually, while it feels faster, it's not faster in the long run. Oh, and there it is. It's back to normal. So it's now starting at 5 o'clock, and the length of this is right. It should automatically fix itself, as you've seen it do. I've seen terrible merge files, but when it comes through to the final file, it's absolutely fine. So yeah, what you're suggesting is to copy and paste it from Excel. Yes, you could, but that would actually not be faster in the long run. If you wanted to change those again, you'd have to copy and paste them in again from a source. Now, I do have a file that's just got numbers in it, days in it, so it's got a whole range of data that I do just want to copy and paste. But in this circumstance, if I take the time and do what you've just seen me do, so yeah, it took 2 or 3 minutes, that's it. If I ever want to change those times in another merge, I just change one field in the spreadsheet and everything ripples through. Even if the data is coming from a different file, as long as the field names match, it doesn't matter. So it could be coming from a sheet 3 years from now that doesn't even exist at the moment, and it would still be absolutely fine. So that's why I take the time. So what we've got at this point, let's get the fields panel out of the way, is everything that we need. So it's got the time, me pretending that I'm a morning person. It's got the holidays in it. It's got the day and the date. It's got the gap over here. So we are almost good to go with that file. So this is the file that I'll be using to actually assemble the planner. So this time I need to save this file ready to work with. So this one's going to be my pages, and it was 2022. So I'm going to put these in. No, not that one. Not that one. Let's get them in the right place. I'll put that in the root of there. So I now have an Affinity Publisher file saved. Doesn't matter where, but I put it in the root of my data folder for tonight. These are the pages that I need to work with when I'm assembling the planner. So just to remind you, these pages in this file need to go in the master planner. So, for example, it would be nice if the January pages went in after January. So we've got in this one that we made a couple of weeks ago, our dividers. But we are going from January to February and there's nothing between. So this is where the pages need to go. So back in the pages file. There's a lot of pages in this file. So let's scoot right down to the bottom. There are 730 pages. Right, to make this faster, you don't have to do this next step. This next step is totally optional. But by doing this next step, it'll make it easier in the future. I have a cheat sheet for this if you want, because I know there's 730 pages in there. What pages are for May? Now you could calculate that, because January would be page 1. And if there was 1 page per day, it would go to 31. But there's 2. So it goes to 62. So I happen to know that pages 1 to 62 are January. But to get these pages in our master planner, do I want to be sitting there and calculating that out? No, is the short answer. And that's the only way, unless you start using sections. So in Document, down to Section Manager, and in the Section Manager, if I had 12 sections, one for each month, life would be so much easier. So I've got one section at the moment and 730 pages. So you may think, oh, this is going to be a long job. It's actually nowhere near as bad as you think, because I'm not exactly going to cheat, but I'm not going to worry about naming things as I go. So at the bottom, this creates another section. So there's 12 of them. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I don't care that they're not the right pages at this point, because the rest is easy. Right, section 1, I want to start on page 1, and it does, but at the moment there's only 1 page in it. And in fact, all the way through to 12, there's only 1 page in it. But that's not a problem. Where should this one start? Well, there's 62 pages for January, so it's going to start on page 63. So I just put in 63. Where is this one going to start? Oh, this is being naughty. This is being naughty. It's moving the sections around. Do you know what? It did not do this when I did it before. It didn't. I can do it backwards if you want, but I don't think you'd like that any better. But let's see if it does. 669 is where December starts. Yes, you see it's quite happy now, so we'll do it backwards. Worked forward yesterday. 609 is where November starts. So as I scoot through these, that is 547. This is why I have a cheat sheet. I've done all the calculations before. Right, 487. And you can see what's happening as I'm doing this. It's knocking these off and holding these for the months and letting me work up. So 425 for that one. And July, 363. Have these right yet? 363. June was 303. And May, 241. This was the fastest way I could think of to do this. I guess I'm wondering about sections at this point, whether you could do anything with the formatting, but I don't think so. 181 in there, a couple more to go. 119. This one is 63, which we did already have in at one point. 63, and they're done. But not quite. Let's do the finessing of it. I'm going to put in here for the names of these sections exactly what they are. I will show you why it's worth doing that and where you will see these shortly. You'll note I'm not putting in months or anything, years or anything like that, not necessary. I just want a quick way of knowing which month is which when I'm looking at these sections. So I put a number at the front, not that they're sorted alphabetically, because they're not, just to make it easier for me. I don't want April next to August and so forth. So I always put a number at the front. And we are almost done. So let's get these in. We got any more questions? Well, I'll put the microphone on.
No, there isn't, no.
Right, I'll turn it off then. Right, let's get back into here. What were you? You were July. Okay. And again, I know this feels like it's taking forever, but without me wittering on, it's actually quite fast. This is why it's always faster in rehearsals, because I'm not wittering on to myself. September, 3 more to go. It'll all be worth it when you see where these appear and how much easier everything is. Right, last one, December. If we could spell it right. Okay, so perfect. So close on that. Remember, we are in the file with the pages in at this point. We're not in the master file. We are in the file with the pages to be inserted into the master file. So I can close this file. I'm not going to do it from here. You could contemplate copying and pasting, but don't do that. Let's do it the right way. So this is our master file. We need to insert some pages in here. So I will start with January. There's nothing between January and February at the moment, these being our divider pages. So document, add pages from file. Then I need to tell it where the files are. So the pages are in Pages 2022. So I'm going to open that. And it should have a think about it and show me this. So this is the dialog box where you can get granular with it. So by default, it will offer you all the pages and it will show you the pages here. That's not really what we want. You could do it by page number. So this is where your cheat sheet, where I happen to know that July is 363 to 424, you could type it in. But that way, madness lies. So a far better way is to choose by section. And the sections that you see listed in here are not the file that you're working with at the moment. They're from the data file. And that's why I took the time and named those sections. Because now I can just choose which ones come in here. And I want January. And I want to add these pages after, and I can choose then whether I use a page number or I choose a section name. But the section name it refers to here in the second mention of the word section is not the same as up here. The first one is from the source file, but this mention is from the destination file, which is our master planner. If I'd got a section called January, I guess I could put it in after that, but I need to control this. So I'm looking at this. Do I want these inserted after page 4? Well, when we look at where page 4 is, it's on the left of this. And I certainly don't want these pages between this blank page and my divider. I want them after the January divider. So it isn't actually page 4. It should go in after page 5. Right, the ignore initial section is assuming that you have a kind of meta section at the beginning. If you don't, then it doesn't matter whether you choose to ignore that or not because you haven't got one. The next thing's actually quite important, which is the unused text styles. And this was mentioned when we looked at text styles, and there's been questions since about text styles. They're magically multiplying, that you end up with base 1 and base 2 and base 3. Where do they all come from? And it's because if you take a file that's got its own base style and you import it into another one, it will bring the styles with it. Now, what that is allowing you to do is ignore any that aren't used. So that's a good idea. So that's why there's a tick in there. Then I can click OK. And one of two things will happen. So let's see what it does. That one. Right. It knows there are some text styles in the source data that are not in here. So what do you want to do with them? So it lists them all. Now I'll take you through them. Heading page left is the one where the date is in the top left corner. So I do want that bringing in. If I wanted it bringing in, but I wanted it renaming, I could put that in here in the rename to column. You'll notice over here I haven't got any conflicts. That's because I designed this data correctly. First off, I told it to ignore any styles that weren't used, and the only styles that were used in that source data were manually created by me, and they were manually named so they didn't clash. So I have heading page left. That is actually a child style of a group here called page styles. This is why it doesn't have a type next to it. It's not paragraph, it's not character, it's a group style. Table planner is also a group style. And within that, there are 3 styles. But you'll notice I've named them table planner so they match the group they're in and then exactly what they are. Heading, text and text centered. So in this case, I do want them all to come in because otherwise they're going to come in unformatted and look diabolical. So all I actually need to do here, because I understand styles and I've designed it the right way, I don't have to sit here and think I've got 27 conflicts and now I need to rename. I've designed it correctly in the source file and I've ignored anything that isn't used. And then OK. That will then have another think about it and bring them in. So you can see at this point, if I'd have said page 4, it would have been awful. Everything would have, these would be on the right and all kinds of things. If that happens to you, just check the page number after which you've told it to insert these pages. So that's why I did a double check and made sure it was the right hand page and I want them to come in after. So all of these are my January pages. And I brought them in like that. The next step is to go into here and bring the February pages in. Now, obviously at this point, you're thinking I've got to do this 12 times. I know. So that's why if you do want them a different colour, you've got a couple of options. You could do the merges 12 times instead, and that way you can merge them to whatever colour you want. Because at this stage, you are going to need to bring these in one at a time per month. Another option would be to take the divider pages and put those in your merge file. I'm not going to do that because we've got other pages in here like this. The other thing is we've got our tabs in here and I don't want to be transferring those and trying to link them up with pages. So because I've got a lot of interactivity built into this master planner, that's why I'm doing it this way. So let's see that once more with February. So document. Add pages from, choose the source file, which it now knows is in there. That will give us the dialog box when it has a think about it. It remembers I said section, but I need to choose February this time. I want it after page number, and if that is an even page, be very careful. It needs really to be an odd page. So I want it after page 69, which is the February divider. Discard the unused text styles again. Now, at this point, something different happens. It didn't show me that dialog box, the one where it was talking about styles and what I wanted to do with them. That's because the styles are already imported. So if we look at our styles over here, and for reasons best known, I've turned that off. But I've got over here my table planner styles, which are in there, and they're underneath, so I can fold those up. And these were my page styles. And the reason I've not got magically multiplying styles is because the base style is totally separate from these. When these were created, they did not touch the base style because I knew I was going to need to import them. And if they were within the base style, I'd have multiple base styles. So that's why I've kept them separate and kept them outside. It didn't stop and say, do you want to bring these styles in? Because they're already there and it knows that. Right, I'm going to do one more month, which is July or August. Let's go for August, because in the August one I've already got the month. So there's the divider, but I've already got a month layout for that. So I would actually want it to be after that. So I want it after page 41, 141. So into add pages from file and go and find the file. First thing to do, make sure that I'm bringing in the pages for August. So again, it flips back to January. So this was why I put the numbers in. It's so much easier with the numbers in. Right, so I want August. I do not want it after an even page. I want it after an odd page of 141. I'm discarding the unused text styles. If I took the tick out of that box now, it would stop and start moaning on about textiles and clashing names and things. So that's why I'm leaving that. And OK. And it will bring those in for August. And there they all are. And I think in August, let's make sure that that's come through. So towards the end of August, let's have a look. That's a Wednesday, so that should be bank holiday. There you go, summer bank holiday. Monday the 29th, there we go. So that's my pages absolutely in there. Do we have any questions on that?
No.
I'm seeing ats up there. Right, okay, so that is how I get them in here. So this is, you are actually merging at this point, but you're not doing a standard data merge. You're doing it by hand, pushing in month by month exactly where you want them. And you would do exactly the same if you had another set of data that you wanted to bring into this master file. So this master file, by the time you finished, would have all of 2022 in it and all of 2023 in it. So there would be a lot of pages. So your navigation's going to be important, isn't it? So remember that bonus. Right, these pages here, where do you want them linked from? And you're probably going to need to put, if you're on this page, wouldn't it be nice if you could tap the number and go to a specific page? And that is what last week was all about. Now the data exists, you could do that. So remember how you did that. You selected, it could be text, it could be a shape, it could even be something that's invisible. I know that seems ridiculous, but it could even be something invisible. And you create an anchor. So we make that an anchor. Then you go back to the jump off point, which in this case would be that number 1 up there, or the entire square if you wanted it. But let's say that number 1. And you would add a hyperlink from that to the anchor. That's going to take a while, isn't it, with 365 days? So anything that can speed up all of the links in your planner is good. So one way you can do that, let's go back up here where you had a sneak preview of a page that I had created, which was this one, a monthly index. So imagine that you open your digital planner and you move to the first page. Wouldn't it be good if you could get from there to any month for a start, before we delve down into page level, before, if you can get to a month? And that can be automated. there's one thing you would need to do. So in here, when we look at this plate that says January 2022, we need to look carefully at it, right? So in the layers, it's a group for a start. And when we look at what's in the group, we've got the text and we've got the shape behind it. This shape, this text here, you may be tempted to put in January, press enter and put 2022. But if you actually look closely on the layers panel, you can see there is what looks like an enter key. I actually held the shift key down and then pressed enter. This is a trick we've used before in indexes and tables of contents, where if you want something on one particular row and you want to see all of the text, or you want it split across rows but you want to see all of the text, you use what's called a soft return, not a hard return. So how that looked before, so you can check yours, instead of it looking correct like that, I had done that. And that then changes. We have a pilcrow between the two words over here, that backward facing P, which means it's a separate paragraph. So you can visually check this. You don't need to go in and actually edit it. You can just look at that. So hold the shift key down and press enter. No pilcrow. I've got my soft return symbol. And every one of these has a soft return between the month and the year, which means when I go up to my monthly index, I have a text frame sat here. And it's ready and waiting for a table of contents. So if I go up to text and down to table of contents and insert table of contents, it will have a think about it and it will put in all kinds of things. For a start, it's got all of these days. Useful, but not what we want in the monthly index. So over here in the table of contents panel, which automatically opens, it's chosen a heading 1 and a heading 2, don't need those. And this one, it's picked as a heading as well, because I put the word heading in it, heading page left. And I'm going to take that away as well. And that leaves us with just the month titles, because they were formatted with a heading style called divider, which means instead of formatting every heading to, even if they look the same, don't just format them with one heading, because the table of contents relies on being able to discern different types of headings even if they look the same. So my heading page left and my heading page right look identical, but I still have two of them. The reason I'm not seeing heading page right in here was I didn't have any content that was formatted with that style, and I told it not to bring in any styles that were unused. So I'm not seeing it. But by being that granular with my styles, I can put in there just the table of contents for the month, for all of the months for 2022. They would not look like that, but for the soft return between the month and the year. And all of those, when they're exported, they'll be tappable and you can go straight to a particular month. Now, you can also, at this point, in here, you now see that this is formatted with a header. So if we look at our styles, it's part of the page styles group and it's heading page left. And it is actually the full date, including the day. Because I formatted it with a font, with a style that is what I call hookable, I could put an index to every page that's in here just by limiting the table of contents to that style. So that table of contents would be a totally separate table of contents. It would obviously be huge and it would have every day in it, and you could tap it and it would take you straight to that day. You would still need to manually create for something like August, where we have, where's our August pages? There. You would still need to manually create the links from here, because there isn't another way to do that. But that's what we've got so far. So when this is finished, when it's got all of the months in it, you brought everything in. One thing I haven't done at the moment, which is not clever, right, is these pages here. So what did I have in the way of master pages over here? Let's have a look what I've got. I've got the discs at the top, so I could use that. And I have got July, August, September. and I've got all of the tabs. So this one was where we left it last week, where we had all of the tabs and they're all wired up. I have since created July, and that was done by duplicating all tabs and turning off, I haven't actually deleted, just turned off the display of some of these tabs. And that one's not right, is it? What was I thinking? I'll show you how to do it, seeing as though I've done it wrong. Right, these need to be showing at the top, don't they? So how it's done is in the layers here, I've got month tabs on the right, month tabs on the left. The left ones are not correct. I've got the wrong ones showing. I want to see January to June. So let's toggle those on. I do not want to see August all the way down to the +3 at the bottom, like that. So I just turn them off. So that one is now correct. That is July. I think the other ones were right. So that one goes to July and it shows August. And this one goes to August and shows September. Right, but these three at the moment do not have the discs applied to them. So those three there, let's grab hold of these. Got to be done one at a time. Let me get my discs and I will apply that down here. And I will apply that to August. And just for good measure, I will apply it to September. Right. You pick that up. Come on, keep going. Oh, come on, scroll for me. You know you want to. I'll move it. I'll move that one so I can just get down there a little bit easier. Right, there's the discs, and we want them in September. Right, they are all applied. So, if we go to August in our standard pages here, so these are the August ones. At the moment, they look fine, but they don't look like my planner. So let's go down to the end of August. There's the end of August. You're not letting me select that, are you? Being very awkward. Good grief. Ooh, this is difficult when there's so many pages. Right, back down here. Come on. You know you want to. You know you want to behave, really. Right, so far so good. Let's carry on. Right, end of September. Right, click on that. Apply a master. And the master that I want to apply, and it can replace the existing because there is none there at the moment, is not the spine decoration. It would be August. So I would have one of these for every month. So let's apply August to it. In come the tabs, in comes the spine, and these will then be clickable. So we have August sorted out. Hold that thought. Right, I'm going to save that file and produce it. It could now take a while to do this, but see, it's already taking a bit longer to save it because this is the first time I'm saving it with all of those in it. Right, we will then go to do an export. When you export it, if you want it interactive, you need to make sure that the export that you choose is a PDF for digital output. So it's having a rare old think about it at the moment. Oh, it's pre-flighting, right. I'm going to ignore and continue. There's nothing that I'm concerned about. I know it's going to be okay, she said confidently. Right, I've set it for PDF digital high quality, 300 DPI, all the spreads. It's having a think about how big that's going to be. Trust me, it's going to be quite large. But last week I showed you the trick when it came to compressing that for output. So let's put Master Planner in the root of there. That's going to take as long as it's going to take. But when it's finished, I will show you that the tabs all work. I'm not going to transfer it to my iPad. We'll be there all day trying to do that. As you see, the export is going to take longer, just purely because of how many pages are in it. And during this export, what it's thinking about is not just outputting the pages, but there's all of those links in there. Now, when I duplicate the tab master page, which had on it 24, 5, 6, 7, had 30 links on it just for the tabs. It duplicated those 30 links. So that's how you get to 5,500 links in a heartbeat, because you've got 12 master pages, each one with 30 on before you start. Then you may have other master pages that have got links like that on and so forth. So, but at least it means that by doing one page, one master page first, with all of the tabs on. I ironed out all of the issues on that one, and then I made derivatives. And the only thing I needed to do with the derivatives was turn off what didn't need to be seen. So it's not as long-winded as you would imagine, as long as you've got the first one correct. So once you've got your style sorted, your global colours sorted, the sizes sorted, the spine sorted, the rest does kind of click together. But as you can see, the export will take the rest of your life, probably. No, it'll get there. It will. It'll get there. Do we have any questions or any chat?
No question.
No question, but we've got chat.
We've got chat. Yes.
That's good.
Saying how magnificent you are.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Right. Hopefully it isn't going to take much longer. I find the middle bit takes the longest. So it gets going and you think, oh, this isn't going to take long. And then it really slows down. But then when it gets towards the end, it seems to speed up a bit. So fingers crossed it's in that kind of mood tonight. It will get there in the end.
Oh, we do now have a question.
Oh, right. Hang on. Let me get your microphone on. There you go.
How to make month spreads by using assets or by copying 1 month and changing the dates?
Have a look at that. Month spreads. Do you mean where you're seeing the entire month? Or do you mean something different? You can have it look however you want it to look by having the source file configured. And yes, you could hook that up to different data and then generate a month view if that was what you wanted. Yes, you would be able to do that. Next week, I'll be looking at weeks because obviously these are, it's a spread, but it's a single day. To do a weekly spread where you have a week on 2 pages needs a whole different look at the data. So I'll show that next week. You could potentially just change a week to a month and it would do what you want. So hopefully that will give you an example next week. Right, that's what the plan looks like. So this is Acrobat Reader, with Acrobat Pro. I opted in my export to have a PDF bookmark, which is what you're looking at in this panel, exported for every single day. So you could go to a specific day just by looking at this. How does it know? And that is to do with this up here, which is why it's formatted with the day as well. So if you wanted that formatted differently, you could put these in 2 different merges. I've got that and I've got the day, but they're in a single block. If you wanted it to be separate, you'd have to put it in separate blocks. But that's what you've got with the links in here. But obviously of much more significance is seeing the thing like in here where you can see the entire spread and navigating even without all of that lot. So that is navigating within here. So we probably need that, don't we, to head down to September, which was the only one. No, August. August it was. Here's August. Tell you what, let's do it the easy way because we built this, didn't we? So technically that should take us to August. That's gratifying. It does. Oh, how amazing. Right, so I'm at August at that point, which is page 70. So the next page was this one. And these tabs, as I say, were all wired up. So the pointer changes to a hand and you can get to whatever they are there. So that's good news. That's working. Right. But also in here, we wanted to make sure that we could get... So let's go back to the top where the navigation is. It does need a lot more navigation. Right, but we will get to August swiftly from there. And there are the pages in August. So although these tabs weren't directly put on this page, they were a master page, they do still work. So they're all wired up and everything works. And all you would actually need to do with that is have all of the months in there and you are good to go. But do prepare yourself for how long that is going to take to export. I dread to think how big it is. I haven't even looked. But what I will do while we have a look at that, so here's my pages. Where's my master thing? Come on, disappear. Come on. Right, let's get that open. Right, this is the PDF that we've just created. So let's have a look how big that is. Hideously large. Oh, 240, so fractionally bigger than last week. Not that much different considering how many pages we've added. So it was the graphics that really added to it. But as we saw last week, you can crunch that considerably. So if we bring back Acrobat, there is an option in here to reduce the file size. It's a bit of a black box. It doesn't tell you reduce it by how much or in what way or what to do with it. But we will put in there compressed, let it strut its stuff as it goes through this bit at the bottom. And as I said, although this is Acrobat Pro, which is hideously expensive from Adobe, it also works with PDF Expert, which is fractionally cheaper, although it's subscription, and many, many apps in the Mac App Store. I am not sure about PC. But if you don't have any of them and you're not concerned about uploading your file, there are actually several online services. They come and go with increasing regularity, but there's many, many online services which will crunch your PDFs for you. Now, that didn't take long once it had got going, and you notice it said on it, also crunching for web. So that file that's open there is now the compressed one. But in here, let's have a look at the size of them. So we'll look at the get info for both of them. First one's the compressed one. It's now 3.1 meg, and this one is 240 meg. So it is definitely worth doing. You will do this as you go in terms of making test copies and see how that works. Don't crunch every one of the test ones. You'll be there forever. But so that's something I would do at the end. I wouldn't worry about the size of it unless I was transferring it to my iPad, in which case transferring 3 meg is going to be much faster than 240. But the number of pages that you add, because what I'd done, they were all vector and they weren't huge graphics, it didn't actually add that much to it. It's added about 700 or 800k for 90 odd pages. In fact, there was more. There'd be 180 pages, wouldn't there? Because I put 3 months in. So there you have it. There you have it. All right, let's get back into here. So what I did with integrating these planner pages, so you know what's going on. We had our data, we had the file that we created in Affinity Publisher, and we generated another file. Then we created an intermediate file. That intermediate file was the master planner. And then finally, we created a PDF from that. Now, this is how I went about it. Flat planning is usually used for magazines, where you draw out that, you don't have a left-hand page at the beginning and you don't have a right-hand one at the end, and you use that flat plan to say what's going to be on each page. Well, in a planner, it's more like this. I had a cover, page 2 was blank, then I had my contents, page 4 was blank, and then I had a January divider. And as I went through all of those, the pink ones are dividers, and all I did was insert those month-by-month pages between the dividers. And that's how it worked. So, let's have a recap. We've covered loads, haven't we? Absolutely loads. Looked at what data merge is. As I've said, there is another session on data merge next week, which is looking at weekly planning. There is a previous session on data merge, which covered the whole area. We looked at data source. It can be in Numbers, it can be in Excel, it can be in LibreOffice. It supports text files, it supports JSON files. With the spreadsheets, it must be XLSX format, not an older format. If you have an older file, just open it up in virtually anything that would read it and then save it out as a new file, and that will sort out that. Then we link the data source to the publisher design file. Then we use the data merge manager for that, because it's a 2-step process and there's 2 interface elements you need to be familiar with. One is the data merge manager and the other is the fields panel. The data merge hooks it up to the data. The fields panel inserts the fields where you want them in the document. Then we created multiple merge files. The final one being to finish the planner, to actually build the final planner in the master planner file. The bonus was the magic hyperlinks, which is if you use styles correctly and you get granular with your style. So we don't want a global heading 1 and a global heading 2. That won't help build the table of contents. But granular heading styles will. So if you had a heading style for January and a heading style for February and another one for August, you would be able to create granular indices, tables of contents, per month. So a lot of the work in this happens up front. So actually, with this session today, I was twiddling my thumbs in terms of prep because it was all done. It was all done because there was a real heavy lift before the first session and the second session, where you're working out styles, you're working out measurements, you're working out everything to make sure that at the point you get to this stage, it all just pulls together. And it did all just pull together. Right, a little something that's happening at the moment. I am in the middle of Ship 30 for 30. If you have never heard of Ship 30 for 30, it is an online cohort where for 30 days you write 30 atomic essays, so about 300 words per day. I've done this is my 4th cruise. Every time I do it, I do something different. And this time I'm doing 30 days on the A to Z of Affinity Publisher. So every day there is a post and it is something to do with Affinity Publisher. So the first day was Affinity versus Adobe. Yesterday was B is for, and B was for base style. So I explained the base style. Today's will be up when I've finished. Put in the chat what you think it is. It begins with C, obviously. But tell me if you know what you think it is. Right, we have future sessions because we are in the middle of our planner series. The first one of the planner series is available on demand. It was Create Planner Pages in Affinity Publisher. That was to do with layouts and all of the features that are needed to support you in creating those layouts. The second session was making the planner interactive. So it was all about hyperlinks and anchors. This has been the third session. This has been creating planner pages with data merge. The next one is going to be data merge weekly planner pages. Because if you want a weekly spread, that needs a completely different data source. You might think, well, why would it? Because it's the same dates. It is, but it basically depends on what makes a row of data. So we'll look at that next time. It's not more difficult, it's just a different way of thinking about it, and then we will end up with 52 weekly spreads. Everything I do is available on demand at youtube.com/Elaine Giles. There is also an All Things Affinity playlist, so that has every Affinity application on it. It has Designer, Photo and Publisher, and Photo and Designer for iPad as well. And separately, there is an Affinity Publisher playlist which limits the videos to just the Affinity Publisher ones. Now, the data merge video that I was talking about was called Deep Dive Data Merge in Affinity Publisher. It was delivered about, I think it was May last year, and it was a deep dive because the entire feature has not actually been there that long. So it went through all of it and it took different approaches to it. There was catalogue style data merge, which today's was not. Today's was page level data merge. And the bingo cards. If you've never seen the MacBytes bingo cards, that was the one job I wanted data merge to do when it was announced that it had data merge. Because for many years, Pages was fabulous and Pages did it. And then Apple ripped out the data merge from Pages and it all had to be done by hand. It was a nightmare. But it coped admirably. Right, do subscribe. Makes a difference to what YouTube think of our videos, etc. And also you get notifications when we go live. And of course, we love you guys. If you have found anything tonight useful, give it a like. It really does make a difference with YouTube. If you would like first notification of everything we do, then go to elainegiles.com/VIP. You will find a sign up for my newsletter. There is usually at least 2 mails a week. The first one will announce what the session is. The second one will give you direct links to parts of the video. Usually about 12 to 15 points in the video, all with chapters, etc. And that will be in that mail. Right, time for Q&A. So, have we got any Q&A?
We have. Just give me a second whilst I put them into the...
Thank you very much for that, Dale. I'm now looking at the chat and I see a super thanks. Thank you very much. Oh, information you can use. Do tell what for. If you're able to tell us what for, do. That would be brilliant. Right, have I missed anything, Mike, like super chat that I need to say thank you for? Right, okay. So I am now waiting for questions.
Right, the first question is from Frankie. Does the PDF option in Affinity not enough? I guess it's not enough.
If you mean for compressing it, I've kept it at decent quality. So when it comes out, I've got control over it when it comes to compressing it. And if I don't need to compress it, then I won't compress it. It's as broad as it's long, to be honest, because you don't really get inside Publisher any opportunity at all to tell it how to compress. In that regard, PDF Expert is better because it does give you information and you can control how it compresses the file. So the best advice would be to test it with each export and see which is the best quality against file size and pick the one that suits you. Other than that, I would make mine as small as possible, but I don't want to lose that much quality either. The one thing that I wouldn't do, I would never export it from Affinity Publisher and then compress it, because in essence you're double compressing it. If you choose a compress option as it comes out of Affinity Publisher and then you recompress it, the danger is it will look terrible. It might not look terrible on your device, but it might look terrible on another device. So I would never double compress it. So because of that, I export at the best quality I can and then compress it once when I've finished. That's just the way that I do it. But, you know, your mileage may vary. It depends on what app you're going to be using to compress it as well. As I say, I have used a PDF Expert for years and years, but they've gone silly with subscriptions and different versions for iOS, and I'm not going there. So I've switched to Acrobat. But Acrobat, I'm surprised that PDF Expert gives you 3 options for the compression and a custom one, I think, and Acrobat doesn't. But the Acrobat one looks okay, and I'm happy with the file size. So that's why I leave it like that. But no, if you can export it directly from Affinity and have it the size that you want and the quality you want, then go that way. You can, of course, create custom exports. So you could start with a good quality one and then tweak your own configuration and save it as a custom configuration. I hadn't had the time to go down that route because I've been creating all of this. All of this has already been done before you guys see it, so I've already gone through all of that. But yes, I have had a request for a full session on PDF and how to control the output, so it will probably be included in that session. So I hope that answers that. Right, next question.
Next question. Where is the 30 for 30 blog?
The 30 for 30 is on Twitter. I will take the posts and put them on my blog, but to be honest, at the moment, with prepping for this and writing the stuff, it's only on Twitter at the moment. So it's twitter.com/Elaine Giles, and you will find them there. There's a thread. It's the pinned thread at the top. It started on Saturday when I explained what I was doing. Sunday I did the Adobe Affinity Battle Royal. Yesterday was the base style, and today we've had a suggestion for creating like that, but no. Oh, and is D for deep dive? No, D's not going to be for deep dive, but surely you've got a big clue what D might be for. Just saying. Right, next question.
Next question. Which of your Affinity videos would you suggest for prep work to the planner videos? I've watched plenty.
I've done 2 videos on the generics of Publisher. The first one I did was with the beta version, which is now almost 4 years ago. That is just called Affinity Photo Beta, and it's 3 hours.
Publisher.
So, Publisher, yeah, Publisher. I have to play the drink game when I say photo. It's everything. It's everything that I could fit into the 2 days I had looking at it. So there's that one. Another one which covered the whole thing is 3 years ago when the final version was released. And in essence, I repeated the beta one, but with the changes that were put in it. So in that original beta, it didn't have hyperlink function, so I couldn't cover it. But in the released one, it did. So those two are generic. Other than that, I think all of them are very specific to one thing or another that you want to do. If you want to get up to speed with Publisher, then those are the two I would recommend. Mike can put the links in for those.
Mike's put the links in.
Oh, he's on the ball, isn't he? So hopefully that will help with that. If you've got any questions, just ping me.
D is for data merge, apparently.
It is. I wonder how you guessed that. You're still not cracked C yet. Come on. C is, yeah, it's a feature. It's a feature. We didn't mention it tonight, but it is a feature.
Right, we have another question.
Okay, where you go.
Do you have anything to add, re how Affinity reads the merge file? You mentioned left to right. I've noticed that it doesn't seem to read the data that way, the way Word mail merges did.
How it reads the data, it starts at the top and works down. Each row is a record. That's why the weekly plan needs a totally different approach, because you have no control over how it reads that data. It just starts at the top and works its way down. Now, as you saw, it has its moments, does Affinity Publisher, in terms of when I created those sections. I did that 3 times in rehearsals. And I created the first one, I created the second, and I thought, oh, this is going to take forever, need a faster way. So I put the 12 in, and I thought, right, I'm going to have to start at the end and work backwards. Would it have it? No. So I thought, right, we'll start at the top and work down then. We started at the top and worked down. Then in the second one, that didn't work, but the other way did. So there's definitely something not quite right there. Last week you saw me struggle with the application of the master pages, which somebody confirmed this week. They tried exactly the same and the same thing happened, but the second time they did it was fine. It's got a mind of its own, let's put it like that. But no, each record that you bring in is a row, which was why when I added the time blocks to it, you saw that the 24 blocks were in columns. So the row is the record, the column is the set of data, but you have no control. The only issue you've got, the only feature you've got in Affinity Publisher in terms of what it reads in is restricting the rows, but it's by number. So do you happen to know, if you want to exclude July, do you happen to know what pages they are? And the odds are no. It would be nice if they built in an engine where you could put the query at the publisher end rather than at the Excel end, because at the Excel end you would be juggling data and it would be easier to lose a record than it would be at the publisher end. I don't know whether they'll do that. I mean, Logic says when they improve on the next version, that's something they could add, but they may consider that that is not something that they want to add at that end. Do I think it should? It would be nice if it did, but I can understand if they don't want to do it, because they add a feature and you can do it alphabetically, or you can filter on one thing, and the next thing people want 15 more features, and then it just becomes bloatware and it's difficult. If they had the ability to build a filter, the next thing would be, can I regex the filters? And be like, oh, come on, guys. So at the moment, no, you can't. You don't really have much control over it, but I can understand that. They have at least added the feature that you can attach multiple data sources, which is unusual. Word can't do that. Word, you're very limited. You would have to manipulate the data at the Excel end for Word for the fact that you can't add multiples. So you could add month by month in here, which you couldn't in Word. So it's just the way they've chosen to implement that. But no, you don't have any control at all, unfortunately. Right. I'm liking Tracy's question.
I was going to not read that one out.
Well, we'll say need a kick up somewhere. That's what we'll say. Why does Affinity often need a kick up somewhere to do something correctly? I've no idea. What's bizarre to me is if you have an app and something is working. So I'm thinking back to when I used Keynote to generate documents with links in, because Keynote had a feature where you can link to a page. So that'll do. Right, that is like the hyperlink and the anchor thing. It worked perfectly. And then they broke it. And you're like, how do you break something when you're not touching it? When you're not editing that feature in any way at all? You're not enhancing it. but you've just broken it. And the thing is, it broke when I needed it. And the only thing you could do was roll back. But you can't roll back when an app's from the App Store, especially not when it's an Apple app. So there I was scrambling to turn on my laptop while turning off the Wi-Fi so it couldn't update. So I could extract the .app file and put it on my machine and take the new one away because it didn't work. But yes, it with Publisher, the nonsensical thing is something should either be broken or not randomly work and then randomly not work. And that's what seems to happen with Publisher. I have no idea. The master pages worked fabulously in rehearsals, not one issue. Came to do it live, had to do it 4 times. It's just, there's no predictability with it. So I can't answer that one, Tracy. I have no idea.
Well, that's it.
There are definitely some quirks in Affinity. Oh, Renee says poor coding. Well, do you know, I can't disagree there because there is a big thing rumbling on in the forum. Let me know in the chat. Do your Affinity apps, any or all of them, take like 30 seconds to open? Because mine do. This has been rumbling on for 10 months. Affinity are saying it's nothing that they've done, that it's an Apple gatekeeper check, which I could understand if the versions of the apps that I had were bought from the App Store. I have bought them from the App Store because I want them on more than one machine, but I have also purchased them directly, and the version that is on this machine is the direct versions. So why is it pinging Apple Gatekeeper servers if I haven't bought it via the App Store? And this has been rumbling on for 10 months, and it still takes 30 seconds to start up. It's a complete joke. So people are getting quite nasty now in this forum chat because, you know, I know it's 30 seconds and you think, does it really matter? But 30 seconds 10 times a day, over a week, over a month, you're wasting time. One guy actually put in, and I laughed out loud because that's where I'm at. He said, look, I bought the Affinity apps because Photoshop took so long to open and yours opened instantly. He said, now Photoshop opens faster, I might as well go back to that. And off he went. Now, I have done a comparison. Photoshop opens in 3 seconds. Photoshop used to take forever to open. It opens in 3 seconds. And Affinity takes 30. Now, Affinity are saying it's not their fault. I don't know who's at fault here. But it does remind me of when we had a dial-up connection with a company called Be There. Be There's equipment was in the BT exchange. BT would blame B and B would blame BT. Me, sat here, no internet, don't care. Just fix it between the two of you. So with this, I don't know if it's their fault or if it's Apple's fault. But as people rightly point out in the chat, Pixelmator Pro doesn't have this problem. So fix it. But it's still not fixed. Right, let's have a look what else is going on in here. Only Publisher takes ages to open. No, it's all 3 for me. But about 4 months ago, the last time I tried to fix it, I uninstalled the ones from the App Store and I installed the ones direct, and they were fine. They opened in a couple of seconds. It was brilliant. And then about a week later, off it went again. There's no predictability with it. And one piece of advice on the forum a few months ago was create a copy of the .app file. Rename that to like backup, then delete the other one and then rename the backup to the right name and it'll work. And people were like, oh, it works. And then all of a sudden Apple did some kind of update and that broke again. So yeah, not happy with that. Could definitely work faster, but I just don't know what's wrong with it. And as they point out, if any application that is using the same gatekeeping system can start in a couple of seconds, then why can't Affinity? And I don't know the answer. I don't, because they're not telling us. But there you go. Oh, SFN is on a PC. So you've probably got no problems then, have you? I might have to resort to using it on my VM at this rate. Dale's on Windows as well. And it opens faster than Publisher. Oh, no. So, yeah, it's just Apple. But Apple's kit used to be amazing. I switched in 2006 and it was amazing. I had hanging off a 2006 20-inch iMac, 22 external drives, and it flew. And if you put one external drive on now, it just grinds to a halt while it has a think about indexing it for Spotlight. So 22 and it would just fall over. So I don't actually think Apple are necessarily going in the right direction with some of this stuff. There was a night about a year ago. So it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. Mike's well away asleep and I'm trying to work. And it was like everything just drew to a climax at the same time. I was trying to update some apps, so it's updating apps. And then I had an internet issue, which meant that the computer thought it was online, but it wasn't actually online. So my Mac is wired to the router. So the router's saying, yes, hello, I'm here. But there was no internet connection. Then the internet connection came back, but it still couldn't connect. And the machine was absolutely crawling. It couldn't even run an app. And we're talking here an app that had absolutely nothing to do with anybody with an issue. And it turned out that it just happened to be that I lost my internet, and I'm thinking it was to do with that, and it wasn't. Apple had lost their internet. So their certification verification servers were down, which meant that none of my certificates would verify, even though at that point I did have an internet connection. I went to bed in the end, it was that bad. But afterwards, you know, the story came out and it was like Apple's verification servers should never go down. There should be redundancy on redundancy on redundancy. Nobody could run an app that they had bought and paid for. And related to that, there have been situations where certificates have been erroneously revoked and developers, their apps won't run. So even though you bought and paid for it outside the App Store, the app won't run. Now, there's no... How Apple get away with it, I don't know. Because if it was Microsoft, they would be hung, drawn and quartered. But Apple just kind of, oh yeah, oh dear, and get away with it. But with this startup thing, I'm beginning to think, you know, I'm looking at the kit and I'm thinking, you've killed my 27-inch iMac that I adore. So what am I going to buy next? Could well be a Surface. What are they called? Surface Studio, which I've admired for years. I do think it's a beautiful looking thing. The only problem is it runs Windows and it doesn't run all of the stuff that I use when I broadcast. So the microphone app, the broadcast app, they're all on Mac. Might be time to look round at the PC and think what to do. It's just ridiculous. I mean, to have a problem for a couple of months is bad enough, but to have a problem heading into 12 months that's affecting so many users is just not on. And I feel for Affinity if it is Apple. And Apple are just... I mustn't say bad words, must I? But Apple are getting beyond ridiculous. If you've turned on the option to run apps from the App Store and known developers, that should be it. But the way it knows if it's a known developer is these verification servers, and if they go down, that's it. You're not doing anything. They've gone down once. Who knows if they will ever go down again. Right, let's have a look. Mandy's having trouble with iPad Designer on iPad. Constantly crashing. What iPad have you got? Because Designer, that's partly the issue with Publisher, is it needs a decent iPad, so it's going to need to be an M1 iPad. But I've not really had any trouble with Designer. But I have noticed my older iPads are running slower and slower. And I think a couple are at the point where they probably can't be upgraded. So I haven't had the trouble with that, but yeah, I've got enough trouble with my Mac. Try to open it on a Windows machine. I've got a virtual machine that runs in parallels on my Mac. And I have the apps installed in there for when I need a Windows version. And they run fine. So I know it's an Apple issue. I just can't understand how Pixelmator Pro can work around it if Affinity can't. Or won't. I don't know. We'll all have to complain on the same day. There's a plan. We'll come up with it. Now what can we do? What can we do? What day of the 30 days should we do that? Startup time. S is for startup time. We'll all complain on the same day. You never know, that might get them shifted. When it comes to the wallet, Adobe products open the wallet way faster than Affinity. That's all that matters. Yeah, Adobe is not cheap. No, it's not. That's what I covered in day one. It's not. They're getting away with the fact that it's more corporate now. It definitely is more corporate. And some people are using Lightroom because there isn't an alternative to that either. There was talk a couple of years ago that Affinity are working on something that is in essence Affinity Bridge. So there's Adobe Bridge, something like that, digital asset management. But I think that would have seen the light of day before now, but for the Affinity Publisher for iPad thing. So I think that could be a good few years off, yes. In the meanwhile, of course, we've all got Eagle instead of Affinity Bridge and Adobe Bridge, although Adobe Bridge is totally free. But yes, you have to have deep pockets if you are going the Adobe way. You bought the Affinity Suite, half price, $25. I've almost felt obliged. Well, I know what I did when it came on half price once. I'd already bought these things, but I'd bought Designer from the App Store, I think, because that's how it was released. And subsequent to that, they released it direct. So when it came on offer, I thought, you know what? This was like 2015, I think, when it was released. And by this stage, it was 2018. And I thought, you've not charged us for anything. So I bought them all again from the App Store. But at least I'm in the position to say it doesn't matter if it's the App Store version or the direct version. None of them run fast on a Mac, trust me. Once they get going, they're all right. It's this initial checking that's an issue. But I do think 10 months on, it's about time they'd sorted that out. A 9th generation basic one. You know, 9th generation's not that old though, is it? So maybe reinstall it and try that before declaring that, because I've had apps where they just get stuck and there's nothing I can do, so I uninstall them, reinstall them, and they're much better. So try a reinstall just of that app first. Make sure you backed up all the local files, obviously. Acrobat has its own problems. The biggest problem with Acrobat is its interface. It's hideous. It looks like Fisher-Price designed it. I constantly have to use the help file to know where anything is. It's built for iPad. The interface looks like you should touch it. And I hate that. On principle, I hate that. Because we were all told when we got iPads, apps couldn't look like they did on the desktop because it needed to fit the form. Well, why have you put an iPad app on my Mac then? But they're not replying to that, so there you go. A tweet storm about the problem. That might even work better, Tracy, because, you know, publicity. They don't like publicity. But I would have thought if they could have fixed it, they would. Surely it's in their interest too. So I don't know if it's Apple that are dragging their heels. I've no idea, but somebody wants something, definitely. Ooh, and Per Cerber wants Affinity Motion Graphics. A lot of people have requested a video editor. I'm not sure they'll ever go that way, though. I'm really not. Their expertise is in the apps that they've brought out, and there is actually a lot they could do in terms of looking back at Page Plus and the apps they had years ago and adding the usability from those apps to the Affinity apps. So there's a lot that they could do with the apps they've got without building any more. But they had confirmed they were working on Affinity Bridge, Affinity Asset Management, but not been mentioned in almost 2 years, I don't think. Unfortunately. Tracy's problem with Eagle is you got to import the files, you can't reference them. I thought that at the beginning because I like to have... I did that with Aperture, I did that with Lightroom. They were outside of any internal library system. But do you know what I did? I thought, do you know what? Just import them. And I did. I've stopped worrying about it. Don't think about it. Just do it. Obviously, it does give you the issue that because there isn't an iPad version, you don't have access to your stuff on the iPad. That's the big problem. But I think the answer to that is to get Eagle for iPad, not reference your stuff. We need to ask Eagle to make Eagle for iPad. Oh, Tracy loved Page Plus. I use Page Plus for years. I remember once I went on holiday. I just walked out on a job. That was the last job I ever had, wasn't it? I walk out on jobs a lot. I decided in the end working for me was the only way. But I just walked out on a job and we'd gone on holiday. And I think I got a call. And basically a parcel was arriving and I thought, that's great, I'm not there. Anyway, it was like, when do you want this parcel? So when I get back. But I didn't know what this parcel was. I had no idea. And when I got back, it was a huge bundle of apps from Affinity, from Serif. The company's called Serif. And it was like, I haven't entered a competition or anything. And it was just like, no, we just have a draw every month. And somebody gets like every product that we've got. And I got this massive box with all these products in. And I always had a soft spot for them after that. That was 1994, I think. So that was great to come back to. And you know the biggest plus with all of that, they had manuals with them. Oh, those were the days. They had manuals with them. Not like now, where you're struggling to find anything. But there you go. Right. Oh, we don't want two versions of them, Renee. Renee's saying you can keep the files in the original location and import them, but it takes up twice as much space. The trouble is keeping them updated. The beauty of Eagle, which was why I thought in the end, I was the same as Tracy with music. When I was on Windows, I used Winamp. Who remembers Winamp? And I had my files organised to within an inch of their life. And it worked beautifully. And then iTunes came along. And I remember going in, there was a service called One-to-One, and they would set your Mac up for you. And I remember asking about, well, how do I control this and control it? And the guy said, just import them and be done. And he showed me on one of the Macs in the Apple Store that you could import this and do that and then delete this, and you didn't lose anything. And I'm watching mesmerised, and I thought, you know what, just do it. And that's what I did after that. Obviously with music, we don't have that issue now. But just importing and leaving it to it is how I go about it now. I think you can, if you import them, export them, and it retain the structure. But the features that it gives me inside Eagle are worth giving up the control of where the files are. That's what I find anyway. I know, manuals. It's a long time ago. I used to love manuals. I would read them cover to cover because I'm that kind of girl. And then if I did need a feature, it's like, oh, I know it that it does that. I just then need to look up how. But half the time now it's like, does it do that? What does that mean? And there's has anybody noticed like odd dots appearing and squiggles? And it's like, I don't know what that means. And then it's like, well, how do I even look that up? I needed in my Ship 30 for 30 today to put in a symbol. So I've got the Pilcrow symbol in, and I needed this symbol that represented a tab. How on earth do you look that up? What the symbol's called? So I'm all over the place with tab, ASCII code, all kinds of stuff. And then I remember that it was the symbol that we use in WordPress to represent more. And I think it's pronounced Raquo. It's R-A-Q-U-O, I think. And I thought, I wonder if that's it. And I typed it in and it was. But, you know, it's sheer guesswork. It's guesswork and it's ridiculous. And now I've moved on to Monterey, I'm not happy that if the microphone is being used or the camera is being used, there's an orange dot to indicate it. You know, fine on a mobile device, but really on my desktop, if you look in the top right-hand corner now and you squint, there's an orange dot. There's an orange dot over my presentation. That's not cool. That is not cool. If you're wondering, this is what I'm saying about symbols that just appear. That's what it means, that the microphone's on. But, you know that because you can hear me. And I know that because I can see it bouncing up and down. But there you go. Right, okay, last call for questions.
No,
that's it. All done. Right, well, we will be back next time where we will be looking at planner page creation, but this time not by day, we're doing it by week, which means fun and games with the data source. So we'll be spending a little bit more time in Excel honing the data source, but before you panic, do it once and you're done. So you just got to hold on to that as you're looking at the data source and thinking, oh no, it is do it once and you're done. Right, okay, I will switch to there and I will say to you a good night from me.
and good night from me.
And we will both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.